As a naturopathic doctor who focuses on brain health, there's one thing I literally do all day long in my clinic, and that is calling people out on their self talk. And you know what phrase I hear more than anything else? It's a phrase of I can. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, here it is again. That little sentence that just is secretly literally ruining people's lives and yours, because I know that you say this to yourself all the time in different areas of your life. You don't even realize how destructive those two words are, but the moment that you say I can't, you literally just like close the door on your own potential. You just planted that seed of limitation, and you didn't just plant it, you're just sitting there, watering it, giving sunlight, and helping that seed grow into this big, beautiful weed in your mind. And I can't sometimes can seem harmless, right? It sounds like it's honest. Like I can't do art or I can't run and all of these things. It sounds like humility. It sounds like you're being realistic. You tell yourself, I'm not being negative. I'm just being honest with myself. But that's the trap because I can't is an honesty, my friend. It's self sabotage wearing a humble disguise. It's one of the sneakiest forms of betrayal. Why? Because the moment those words leave your brain doesn't question it. It doesn't go, wait, is that actually true? No, your brain obeys it like it's given a command. Your subconscious takes that statement, I can't, and starts to rearrange your beliefs, your energy, your focus, and your behavior to match the I can't. Your nervous system hears it too. It begins bracing for failure. It starts filtering opportunities as threats. It shuts down creativity. It reduces motivation. And worst of all, your identity starts shrinking to fit inside the new box you just built for yourself. Your sense of self literally gets smaller when you say, I can't. And you don't just stop believing that you can't do that one thing, you start believing that you're the kind of person who can't. Let me paint a few pictures for you here so you really understand this. So, if a child hears you're not athletic, not maliciously, maybe it's just a comment passed down from a parent, a teacher, a coach, but it lands and it sticks. And now the same child is 25 and he tells himself, I can't work out consistently, not because his body can't, but because his mind already decided he's not that kind of a person. Or a teenager fails one math test and someone says, well, numbers just aren't your thing. And then boom, that label is sealed. And at 30, she's struggling to budget her money and says, I just can't understand numbers. Or a high achiever gives one bad presentation, it stings, she feels exposed, vulnerable, ashamed. And now every time an opportunity comes up to speak, she whispers to herself, I can't sell myself. I can't speak. I can't give presentations. Or maybe a woman grows up in a family where expressing emotions wasn't safe and she was told to be strong or to keep it together. And now in her adult relationship, she says, I can't be vulnerable, even though deep down she craves connection. Or a man watches his parents struggle financially and never sees anyone living a life full of abundance. And now he says, I can't be wealthy. People like me don't have that kind of success. Or people like where I come from don't have that success. So do you see what I mean now? This I can't, even though it feels like a fact in your mind, it isn't a fact. These are stories that were told, repeated, and eventually accepted as identity. And once something becomes a part of your identity, your brain will defend it, even if it's hurting you, even if it's holding you back. Because your brain's job is to stay congruent with who you believe yourself to be, not who you're capable of becoming. So that little phrase, I can't, isn't just about whether or not you can do a workout, give a presentation, or have hard conversations. It's about how your identity starts to mold itself around limitation. It becomes embedded in your body language, your tone of voice, your posture, your habits, your energy, your decision making, your relationships, and eventually your entire life trajectory. It creeps into everything. You say, I can't trust people, and you start attracting the ones who reinforce that story. You say, I can't change, and suddenly everything around you feels like proof that you're stuck. But it's not proof, it's just reinforcement of the spell. Because your words are spells that you cast on yourself. And when you say, I can't, you don't just cast a spell on your current self. You cast it on your future self too. You limit what's possible before you've even given yourself the chance to try. And you're always proving yourself right, even if it's hurting you. So if you want to change your results, you have to start changing your internal script. It has to come from within. Because the difference between someone who rises and someone who stays stuck is not talent. It's not even luck. It's not even intelligence. It's what they tell themselves in moments of pressure. So, where does this even come from? Why is I can't your default? And why does it feel so automatic, so believable, even when it's not true? Here's what I've seen again and again in my patients, clients, and even in my own healing journey. I can't is never about ability, it's almost always about pain. It's almost always about a wound. So let's get deeper into these roots of where I can't stems from. It can stem from past failures, right? The emotional imprint of disappointment. So think about it. Maybe you tried something once, you gave your best effort, and maybe it didn't go the way that you planned. Maybe you failed publicly, maybe you got embarrassed, maybe nobody showed up, maybe you disappointed yourself, and that pain didn't just sting in that moment, it marked you. Now your brain, in an attempt to protect you, creates an association. Effort equals disappointment. Trying equals pain. So, to avoid repeating that emotional wound, your brain whispers, let's not try again. Let's just call it impossible. So, you start saying, I can't, not because you can't, but because your nervous system still remembers how much it hurt the last time you tried. And unless you go back and process that moment, it becomes a silent barrier for years. Number two is conditioning from childhood. So, you can literally inherit limitations that aren't even yours. So many of your beliefs about what you can or can't do didn't even start with you. They were planted by the people who raised you, taught you, coached you, or led you. Sometimes they meant well, and sometimes they didn't realize the damage they were doing. But your young, impressionable brain soaked it all in like a sponge. You were told that that's not your strength. Don't be too ambitious, be realistic. I got that all the time, by the way, like be realistic or stop doing too much, or that it's not for people like us. And you hear something enough times, it becomes your inner voice, even if it never belonged to you in the first place. Your current I can't might actually be someone else's fear echoing through your mind. Number three is the fear of disappointment, right? So the hidden fear behind inaction. This one's a really sneaky one because saying I can means you have to try. And if you try, you might fail. And if you fail, you might feel like a disappointment to yourself or others. So, what does your brain do? Your brain tries to get ahead of the pain. Instead of risking a real disappointment later, you reject yourself before the world can. It sounds something like, I can't do that job. I can't put myself out there. I can't handle rejection. But what you're really saying is, I'd rather play small than feel the pain of unmet expectations. And again, that's not laziness, that's emotional armor. You're protecting yourself from pain at the cost of your potential. Number four is low self worth when you don't believe you deserve more. Sometimes I can't has nothing to do with your ability and everything to do with how you see yourself. So, deep down, if you don't believe you're worthy of love, peace, success, or happiness, you won't even let yourself imagine those things. So, when opportunities come up, your mind automatically says, not for me. I can't. I'm not the type of person who gets this kind of life. This isn't a capability issue, it's a deservingness issue. It's so big and it runs deep. Deservingness is something to this day that I have been still working on. And it's such a shame because it's tied to these feelings of guilt or rejection or feeling invisible when you were growing up. And until you really rebuild your sense of self-worth, I can't will always be your mind's default to an answer to anything good or that you're capable in your life. Number five is perfectionism, so that fear of being seen as imperfect. You'd be surprised at how many high achievers struggle with this one, or maybe not surprised because they're high achievers for a reason, right? It's not that you can't do something, it's that you're terrified of doing it imperfectly. So if you don't feel 100% prepared, confident, polished, or in control, you don't even try. You convince yourself, I can't do this, when what you really mean is, I can't handle being seen as messy, uncertain, or average. Perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about fear of exposure, and I can't becomes your excuse to avoid the vulnerability of being seen in progress. Number six is over identification with your past self. So this could be you outgrowing an old story. So that's another root cause of I can't, right? Is if you're still clinging on to that outdated self image of yourself. Maybe, you've grown a lot or changed or healed so much already, but you're still operating from the mental blueprint of your old self. You're making decisions from the version of you who was insecure, afraid, uncertain, or unprepared, even though that's not who you are anymore. So your present day self still feels stuck. Not because you lack skills, but because you haven't updated your identity. Your life is expanding, but your self concept hasn't caught up yet. So you keep saying, I can't, even though everything is screaming inside you that you're ready. So these are just a few of the root causes, but the biggest point here is that I can't is never the truth. It's just an outdated program that's running in the background. You weren't born saying, I can't. You weren't born believing it. You learned it from wounds, from experiences, and other people's fear. And anything that's learned can be unlearned. The moment you start seeing your I can't as a reflection of pain, not truth, is the moment you start taking your power back. So here's the mindset shift that I teach my clients: there's always a way. Always. Even if it's not easy, even if it's not fast, even if you can't even think of it yet, even if you have to build it from scratch, when you believe that there is a way, your brain starts looking for options, your brain starts to get creative. So let me paint a visual in front of you. So picture a wall in front of you. If you say I can't, you sit down in front of it. But if you say there has to be a way, your eyes start scanning around the wall. And you start looking to see, is there a ladder? Is there a door? Even just a crack, can I go around it? And that's the difference. The I got this mindset doesn't mean you have it figured out. It means you trust that you will figure it out. And let me give you two stories that I share with my patients all the time. The first story is of us literally flying in the sky, right? Once upon a time, someone looked at the sky and thought, what if we could fly? What if humans could travel via air? At that time, that was thought to be absurd, impossible. But someone believed that there was a way. And now we have airplanes. Like, wild. It still blows my mind, by the way, that we have airplanes. Like, I look at them, I'm just like, oh my God, that's like, 200, 300 people just in that aircraft, just flying in the sky. And can you imagine if they said I can't? Like, and just imagine that in any industry. Like, entire industries and businesses would not exist. Another story, this is one of my favorite one, Roger Bannister. Before 1954, no one had ever run a mile in under 4 minutes. People thought it was physically impossible, and doctors literally warned that your heart would explode, and it could explode if you tried to run a mile under 4 minutes. But Roger Bannister, he didn't buy it. And it's not that he just woke up and was just like, okay, I'm gonna go run, da da da. He believed there was a way, and he trained. He trained differently. He focused his mind, and he believed it was possible. You know what happened next? He did it. He broke the record. And then this is the wildest part. Dozens and dozens of people broke the 4 minute mile shortly after, because once one person believes, everyone else follows. I'm literally getting goosebumps sharing this story because I think it's incredible. And that's the power of one person shifting from I can't to I got this. So here's what I want you to start doing immediately. Every time your brain says I can't, I want you to stop and ask yourself, how can I? This one question will literally rewire your entire brain. Here's how it looks in real life. I can't manage my stress becomes, how can I create 15 minutes of calm each day? I can't stick to a workout routine becomes, how can I make movement more enjoyable? I can't stop procrastinating becomes, how can I design an environment that pulls me into action? This one mindset shift creates momentum. It moves you from that place of paralysis to possibility. And I'll be real with you, if I had stuck with I can't overcome my depression, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have this business, this mission, this energy, this joy. I would still be hiding, suffering, feeling stuck and ashamed. But I chose a different narrative. I chose how can I, and I slowly rebuilt one habit, one win, one upgrade at a time. And that's how I got this becomes who you are, not just something you say. The other thing that is going to help you is stacking your wins. Confidence isn't built in your head, it's built in your habits. You don't become confident by thinking, I believe in myself. You become confident by proving to yourself over and over again in small, consistent ways. So let me say it bluntly. Confidence is not a feeling you wait for. It's a byproduct of you staying in integrity with yourself. And the way you create that integrity is by stacking wins. Stacking wins means collecting evidence that you are becoming the kind of person you want to be. They don't have to be big, flashy achievements. These are the small, invisible actions aligned with the version of you who has already stepped into your potential. So when you say you are going to move your body, you did, even for 10 minutes. That's a win. When you chose water over that afternoon caffeine crash because you care about your energy, not just stimulation, that's a win. When you said no to that event you didn't want to go to instead of people pleasing out of guilt, that's a win. When you took 3 deep breaths before an important call instead of spiraling into anxiety, that's a win. These might seem small, but they're not, because every time you do that, you're sending a powerful signal to your brain. This is who I am now. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It doesn't respond to what you want or hope for. It responds to what you do repeatedly, and even what you say to yourself repeatedly. So when you repeatedly keep promises to yourself, even tiny ones, your brain starts forming a new internal narrative that I follow through. I take care of myself. I rise when it's uncomfortable. I am someone who does hard things even when no one is watching. And this is what rewires your identity at the subconscious level, because let's be real. Most people's lack of confidence isn't about ability. It's about self betrayal. And they don't trust themselves to do what they said they do. So when you start stacking wins, you're not just building confidence, you're healing trust with yourself. And there's nothing more powerful than that. You know, it's so interesting that a lot of high achievers still don't feel confident inside, even though their resume is impressive. And why? It's because they've spent their entire lives chasing that external validation, not internal congruence. They've achieved a lot, but they've betrayed themselves to get there. So overworked, ignoring their intuition, saying yes when they meant no, burning out, chasing praise instead of purpose. So despite their success, they don't feel safe within themselves. That's why stacking wins, small, aligned, value driven wins, is so important, because that's what builds internal safety. And internal safety is the soil where true confidence truly grows. So let that sink in. The I got this energy isn't something that you're born with. It's not some personality trait reserved for the lucky or naturally confident. Because let me tell you, I never had this, but I definitely have this now. It's something that you train yourself into through action, through repetition and alignment. Every time you show up for yourself, even in the smallest ways, you're casting a vote for the person that you're becoming. Every time you keep that promise to yourself, every time you act in alignment with your values, every time you choose integrity over comfort, you're stacking a win. And with every win you stack, it's like a brick. Brick by brick by brick, you built a new self image. Not one built on perfection, not one built on praise, but one built on truth, action, and integrity. And when your confidence is built on that foundation, it's unshakable, it's real, it's earned. And no one, no failure, no opinion, no external event can take that from you. So here's a reminder: you were never meant to live a life that feels like a cage, because you were born for growth, expansion, and breakthroughs. So the next time your brain whispers, I can't, I want you to smile, take a breath, and say, watch me, because you can and you will. You got this.